The slap echoed through the old roadside diner like a gunshot, freezing forks mid-air and turning every head toward the corner booth where a young, loud-mouthed bully had just struck a quiet single dad. The man who had been slapped, Elias Ward, didn't stand, didn't raise his voice, didn't even blink. His jaw tightened only slightly, but the tension in his forearms revealed something the bully never noticed, a faded, triangular ink mark near his wrist, the kind only a few men in the world truly recognized. A Delta Force insignia. A symbol earned in blood, silence, and missions that never made it to headlines. And that bully had just woken up a ghost from the darkest parts of war. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for what's right, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Elias had walked into that diner only for a cheap breakfast and a quiet moment before picking up his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, from school. He carried the tiredness of many years in his eyes, years filled with battles both seen and unseen. After serving in places where the ground still remembers the footsteps of men who never returned, Elias had only wanted one thing: peace. But peace is never a guarantee, especially for men with scars under their shirts and memories that wake them at night. He sat alone, thinking about how life had changed after he lost his wife 3 years earlier. She had been the only person who could pull him out of the silent storms inside his mind. Since her passing, he'd been raising Lily alone, working long hours as a garage mechanic, trying to keep his world from falling apart. Money was tight, sleep was rare, and guilt was constant. Guilt for being gone too much, guilt for not saving his wife, guilt for being strong everywhere except at home. But Lily gave him purpose. She had her mother's smile, and every time she hugged him, he felt like the world wasn't such a cruel place. On that morning, though, fate placed him in the path of someone who had no idea who he was messing with. The bully, a tall man with too much ego and too little kindness, had been shouting at the waitress for getting his order wrong. When Elias quietly asked him to calm down because the girl looked scared, the bully stormed over in a drunken rage, hurling insults and leaning in close. The diner fell silent as tension built in the air like the moment before a storm. And then, in a burst of stupidity and bravado, the bully slapped Elias. The entire diner gasped, but Elias didn't move. He simply sat still, eyes calm, posture controlled. It was the same stillness he learned years ago when he had to remain motionless while danger crawled in the shadows. He had survived worse than this man could imagine. But he had promised himself, promised his daughter, that he would never fall back into violence unless he had to. His life was different now. Or so he hoped. The bully's friends laughed, but their laughter faded when they noticed 2 old men near the counter staring wide-eyed at Elias's tattoo. Veterans. They recognized the ink instantly. One of them whispered something to the other, and their expressions shifted from surprise to deep respect, even fear. Not fear of Elias, but fear for the bully who had no idea he had just slapped a man whose training made him capable of ending a threat in less than a heartbeat. Elias finally spoke, but his voice was soft, almost gentle, like a warning carried on a breeze rather than a shout. In that moment, the bully felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: uncertainty. The diner grew so quiet that even the hum of the old neon sign outside felt loud. The bully stepped back, confused at how calm Elias was. Bullies expect fear. They expect shouting. They expect reactions. They never expect silence. Elias slowly stood from his seat, not with aggression but with a tired dignity that made him appear far larger than the space around him. His eyes locked on the bully's, and the man found himself stepping backward without understanding why. Maybe it was the unwavering gaze. Maybe it was the posture of someone who had faced real monsters. Or maybe it was because, deep down, even cowards can sense when they've crossed a line nature itself warns them not to cross. But Elias didn't hit him. He didn't push him. He simply walked past him to check on the trembling waitress, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. That simple act of compassion made the bully feel smaller than ever. The diner manager told the bully and his friends to leave. They left with forced bravado, but their shame trailed behind them like a shadow. Yet the story was far from over. Because life has a way of bringing consequences back around in unexpected moments, and this bully had only seen one chapter of the man he had disrespected. Later that day, as Elias pulled up to his daughter's school, he received a call from the police. The bully had crashed his truck into a ditch while speeding recklessly. The police said he was shouting Elias's name, saying the quiet man had somehow messed with his head. Elias took a deep breath, rubbed his temple, and wondered why trouble always found him even when he tried so hard to avoid it. The next morning, however, brought a different challenge, one that struck deeper than any slap. Lily came home from school crying. Some kids had laughed at her old, worn-out shoes and told her she smelled like mechanic grease.